All righty. Well, my name is Arthur Robinson Jr. I'm the creator and host of the Powerful Interviews podcast, along with my co-host, successful entrepreneur Jordan Phillip. And tonight we have a special treat for each and every one of you. An international business expert, a partner of mine. His name is Gordon Bizar, and he specializes in LBOs, leverage buyouts. He's also specializing in buying profitable businesses, and he's an expert in private equity. And he's an expert in how you can actually take your business public and excel your growth to the next level. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome international business expert Gordon Bizar.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you for joining us. Definitely a pleasure to have you.
It's my pleasure. I listened to him rattling off all that stuff, and it sounds like a guy who can't hold a job, doesn't it?
Sounds like a guy who creates jobs is what it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, it's like as he's bouncing around all this stuff, it can't land anywhere.
Yeah. So, Gordon, for the people that don't know you, and I know you very, very well, we've been working for a long, long time, and we're still grinding and we're still working, putting acquisitions together and things of that nature. Can you explain to the people exactly who you are and what is the true definition of an entrepreneur?
Well, let's start with the true definition of an entrepreneur, and then I'll talk about who I am. An entrepreneur is mostly a misunderstood label, if you will. People think it's a person who invests in business or it's a person who starts a business. Those are entrepreneurial activities in some cases, but an entrepreneur is really much, much more. To be a true entrepreneur, it's a person who has a vision, who then orchestrates the time, talent, and resources of other people to make their vision real. The idea is if you're an entrepreneur, doesn't mean you invest in anything. It doesn't mean you put money up for stuff. It doesn't mean you start a business. It means you have a vision. And there are other people's resources that can be then brought together and orchestrated to make that real. That's your job. So you start with the vision, and then orchestrating other people's resources, you make it happen. So, all right, that's what an entrepreneur is. Now, what's my background? Well, I started my first lemonade stand when I was 6 or 7 years old. But all kidding aside, I went to college and I got a degree in finance and economics. And then when I got out of college, I had to unlearn all that stuff, because what they taught me was how to be a good employee for a big corporation, not how to do it for yourself when you don't have the resources to work with that big corporations have. So after I got out of school, the first thing I did was look to the skill sets that I had and the training that I had and the experience that I had. And I ended up for a brief period of time in the life insurance field. My dad was in that field, and I went into estate planning with him. I couldn't have gotten to that level on my own because I really leaned on his knowledge and experience. But very shortly after that, I identified a way to make millions and millions of dollars. And it was during a period on Wall Street called the go-go era. And it was back in the late 1960s. And it was a time when the market was hotter than it's ever been since. Even with the dot-com bubble, couldn't hold a candle to the late 1960s, when the marketplace was so hot that you could literally have an idea on paper. You could take that idea to a boutique investment banker, and if they liked your idea, they'd take you public just on your idea. And as long as that was intriguing enough, they were raising money left and right, and they were making millionaires out of people who had only an idea on paper. So that gives you an idea what that era was like. Well, there was a problem. The problem was that if you're an investment banker firm, then you have what's called a net capital requirement. You have to maintain a certain amount of capital in your firm in order to stay in business. If you don't have the necessary capital, the regulators put you out of business. In order to take companies public, you had to make a market in their stock afterwards. In other words, you had to be prepared to stabilize the market by buying and selling the shares of the company you just took public, so that sales would offset buys and the companies wouldn't spike in the price. Okay, so there's a process. Well, in order to do that, you had to maintain a certain net capital, which means you had an inventory of the stock of all these companies you were taking public. And if anything happened to that company, that it tanked for any reason, then this asset value that you had in their stock could disappear overnight. So what these investment bankers didn't realize at the time that they were taking all these companies public is how exposed they were to the simple death of that owner. I mean, if that entrepreneur died or became incapacitated in any way, the stock would go into the tank, their asset value would shrink, they would no longer meet their net capital requirements, and they'd go out of business. Well, when I pointed that out to them, they were horrified. And so they were looking for, how do we solve this? And I showed them how life insurance could be used to solve that. And I had investment bankers throughout Wall Street at that time, bringing me into all these companies that they were taking public, so I could write big life insurance policies on the lives of these owners, protecting their net capital investment in these companies, and eliminating the possibility that they would go out of business. And I made so much money at that time, it was astronomical. It was just astronomical. But it was like having an idea. It was having, seeing a hole in a marketplace, seeing something that was unprotected, seeing something that was needed, and then constructing a method to solve the problem. That's really what entrepreneurism is all about. It's finding needs and fill it. It's seeing things that don't exist, that need to exist, that you can make happen. And then grabbing that bull by the horn, so to speak, or wrestling it to the ground, and then making that thing happen. And that's the fun of being an entrepreneur. So that's how I started. Then I took my first company public in that hot marketplace with an idea, not much more on paper. And I took my first company public in 1969. And I used the shares of that company, the equity value that was now built up as a result of that marketplace. In other words, the shares had value, right, because they were being traded. And then I used that stock to acquire financial type companies. And I built up a financial services firm during that acquired companies that were life insurance companies, general insurance companies, investment companies, leasing companies, anything to do with finance. And then we cross-marketed the client bases of those companies to create even more revenue for the companies that I bought than they had at that time. And at that time, we were actually a pioneer in the what's called the integrated financial services business. Prior to 1969, if you wanted any financial service, you wanted life insurance, you wanted mutual funds, you wanted real estate, you wanted any place to invest your money, you had to see a person who sold that. And there was just salesmen, and they had no professional background, not even a lot of training sometimes. And you had all these people pushing their financial products on you. And no one was interested in the benefit of the client. They just wanted to sell their products. So if you had financial needs, the life insurance guy was trying to convince you needed life insurance. The mutual fund guy was trying to convince you to put your money in mutual funds. The real estate guy was telling you to put your money in real estate, and all they wanted to do was sell something. Well, we took the reverse approach. Okay, this is find the need and fill it. And we decided that the whole industry was, instead of being client-oriented, was producer-oriented, was product-oriented. Well, what if we could flip the industry and really do a great job for the client? And we came up with this idea of doing financial planning. So instead of selling the person financial services, we would sit down with the client. We would say, well, look, let's look at what your needs are for money. You want to buy a home someday. You want to get retirement money aside. You got kids you got to educate. You want money saved ahead for a vacation. What are your goals? What are you trying to do? And then what kind of income do you have? What kind of resources do you have? And now, based on the resources you have and based on the needs you have, what products should you have to invest your money in? Well, life insurance can do this for you. Mutual funds can accomplish that for you. Real estate can do this for you, and it can do certain things that the other two can't. And we would then come up with a financial plan that optimized the assets, these tools that the client could now use to accomplish their objectives. So instead of pushing a product on a client, we educated the client as to what their needs and resources were all about, and then let them pull from us the solution. The client was better served. They were getting products and services that could really get the job done for them. And we had 3 products to sell, so we were making a whole lot more money than the rest of the guys. So it's done in a way where it's win-win. The objective of good entrepreneurism is you win as an entrepreneur, the client wins, your vendors win, the people who supply you, your investors win. In other words, if it's done right, there are no losers, everybody wins. And that's the nature of that. So that was what I did in the late 1960s. And then in the 70s, I got involved in the leverage buyout boom, where we developed ways of having an ability to buy companies where we didn't have to come up with any capital or cash. In other words, imagine this. You're going to buy a multi-million-dollar company, you don't come up with a dime. Well, you can do it. And the reason you can do it is because inside this company you want to buy, there's assets, right? Machinery and equipment, accounts receivable, inventory, land and buildings. There's all kinds of assets in the company. And the other thing the company has is cash flow. In other words, they have sales that they're making and money's coming in. They're paying all their bills and they're making a profit. So you have cash flow and you have assets. And there's a way to use the assets and the cash flow of the company that you want to buy to create the cash to make the purchase. And then the company's income pays for it all. So if you know how to do it, you don't need your own capital. You just need to know how to orchestrate those resources. So in the 1970s, I bought millions of dollars of businesses in multiple different industries during that period of time. And it was a great time because interest rates were very, very low, kind of like they are today. So today is a perfect opportunity to be buying businesses just in the methodology that I'm just discussing with you. But in the 1980s, a weird thing happened. And that was that the prime rate of interest went from 3 or 4%, like it is now, up to 21% because of this thing then called inflation. All right. Now, when the interest rate went to 21%, you couldn't afford to borrow money to buy a business because the interest costs and the amount of money you had to pay to carry that loan was so much that the debt service on that loan to buy the business would eat you up before you could do anything with the business. You didn't have time to grow it. You couldn't do anything. By the time you paid off the debt or started paying on the debt, all the money got sucked out of the company. So you couldn't do leverage buyouts. So in the 1980s, what I did was I started teaching other people how I bought businesses so that those people who wanted to use it as a tool to get into business, or those people who wanted to use it as a tool to expand a business by acquiring their competitors or acquiring other companies, as long as we could get a right plan for them of what they do with this company, then we could show them how to leverage the assets to buy the company. So in 1980, I put together a program called Bizar Financing. It was a kind of an interesting play on my last name. And it was bizarre, truly bizarre. But we taught people how to use the assets and the cash flow to buy their companies. And during that time, we taught the program in live venues. We did seminars all around the country in major cities. We invited people who liked what we had to offer them the opportunity to come to a conference and learn in every phase of what it took to do these things. And we taught that program in literally all the English-speaking countries on the planet. So we did it in London, we did it in Calgary, we did it in Toronto, we did it in Los Angeles and New York. I mean, just name a major city. And we were having events there throughout the 1980s and well into the 1990s. And then this wonderful thing came along called the internet. And any smart entrepreneur was looking at anything that was going on at that time and say, how do I move this from bricks and mortar, from physically moving stuff from place to place, to delivering it all on the internet, to moving electrons instead of people, to moving electrons instead of materials, because it's a whole lot cheaper to communicate through an electronic medium than it is to pack up a bunch of stuff, haul it off to a city, give an event, and then distribute stuff physically in that place. Okay, it's just a whole lot easier if you can reach people over the internet, deliver the information that they need right over the internet in video and audio, and not have to physically move assets. So being an entrepreneur, the thing you want to do is look at how do I optimize what I'm doing in a way that can be done much more efficiently. So we took all the things we were doing in terms of educating and training people and we moved it to the internet. So that's a little bit of my background. Okay, I've bought over 3,500 companies during my lifetime. I've trained over 350,000 people how to do these types of acquisitions. I have 30,000 plus people who have attended my most advanced courses. I work hand in glove with them even to this day to help them acquire companies in a very hands-on way. Life has been an incredible journey and an incredible venture for me. And the best part of it, and then I know I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to quiet down. But the best part of it is I get to meet guys like Arthur and you. And Arthur has been a great partner with me in a number of different ventures that I've gone into. He's introduced me to some fabulous people who we've gone on to do some great things with. And that's part of the best part of life for me is part of it's the what you do. The other part of it's the who you do it with. And for me, the relationships that I've built up all along this process have just been phenomenal. And I got to tell you, I wouldn't trade my life for anybody's.
Wow. Gordon, you are dropping some specialized knowledge.
That's beyond inspiring, story that you've lived, Gordon. To be honest, it sounds like, something. It's almost like how does a person fit so much in to one lifetime, and still here you are, still moving and shaking and doing things. So I'm totally blown away and inspired by what you've done, and just to kind of segue off of what you shared. In your experience with working with so many different people from so many different backgrounds, what would you say the most important discipline for a person, business discipline for a person to have when attempting to not only take on what you've done, but even just a fraction of the ventures that you've been involved in? What would you say the most important discipline would be?
I can give them to you in 2 words.
Okay.
2 words. One is passion, and the other is tenacity. Okay. The first thing I tell somebody when they tell me they're interested in going into business, and I ask them, well, what business you want to go into? Well, that answer ranges from, I don't know, to something that they thought they should go into because they heard that makes a lot of money. And both of those are not good answers. The first thing I try to do with anybody that I work with in business is I first ask them, well, what are you passionate about? What do you really love doing? Because anything you love doing, the chances are other people love it too. And that means there's a market for it out there someplace. And the thing you want to spend your life doing is what you're passionate about. In case you haven't noticed, I'm really passionate about entrepreneurism. I love what I do. I couldn't imagine doing anything else other than what I do. And I've never worked a day in my life, and I've made gazillions. And the way you do it is you find ways to make money, but you do it in the way that in the field that you love. So if you can find your passion, if you can find that thing that you're really, really passionate about, then the next step is you turn that into a business that makes you money. So the first thing is the passion. Then you need a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of perhaps help sometimes in how you can monetize that. In other words, how do you translate that into a business that monetizes so that you can spend your time doing the thing you really love? And then the other one is tenacity. We had a meeting today with some of our graduate students, and we're working on a couple of projects together. And we're now about 40 days away from closing the purchase of a major CPA firm an accounting firm that we're buying, and we're using financial leverage to do it, all the normal things that I teach people. But one of the things that is shocking to people is it took 3 years to get this deal to where it can close. And it's a process, okay? So it started with meeting the CPA managing partner, realizing that we had a commonality of interest. We enjoyed each other's company. That helps a lot. But the thing is he had certain goals for a CPA firm. I had certain needs for a CPA firm in the things that I wanted to do, because it's a perfect platform from which to do things that I do. I mean, think about this. This a CPA firm we're acquiring has 4,000 businesses as clients. 4,000 clients who a high number of them should be growing by acquisition, and I can help them.
Wow.
Clients who have the two sides of their businesses. One is they have entrepreneurs or business people who own businesses. That's who their clients are. On the other side, they have what's called a family office, which means that they manage money and do business management for high income, high net worth individuals. Okay, in their case, who are celebrities. The firm has an office in Los Angeles and an office in New York, in Midtown Manhattan, and 40% of their clients are high net worth, high income celebrities that they manage their money for. Well, in all the things I do, having access to managed money is a bonanza for me. Having access to business people who have a client relationship with a company that now I own is a gold mine for me in terms of raw material to work with to help build them up. So the logic of us getting together was very strong. Okay, I have a thing that I can do for them and their clients, and they want to grow their firm, and having a resource like me to bring business into them and to take their clients and help them become more successful is a natural. But to get the deal to come together is another whole matter, because now you've got to build rapport with those owners. They can't see you as a stranger. They've got to like you, or they're not going to want to be your partner, right? I mean, you don't go into business with people you don't like. So you got to build up that common bond between you. That takes time. You don't snap your fingers and have that happen. Okay, you've got to have a commonality of purpose. You've got to have enough communication between the parties that they see you as a resource to them. They realize, well, here's this guy, he's got 300,000 graduates of his course around the world. Many of them can be our clients if we have the right relationship with him. They got to see that. They got to understand that. Okay, so you take time to build up those relationships. You take time to do the financial deal, that they see how it monetizes for them and benefits them for the future. And so it takes time to put all this together. And then comes the worst part. Which is, when you're all done with this, somebody's going to have to pay them some money because you're buying their firm, right? Okay, now they're going to stay part owners, which is where they really make a lot of money going forward. But for the part of the firm that you're buying for them, you got to come up with a lot of cash, which means you have to finance that. And a CPA firm has a lot of income, but it's all goes to the partners as payments, right? Partners just take the money out. That's why they went in the business, is they do their work, they want their money, and they want to go spend it. So they don't have a lot of this thing called net, EBITDA, net profit. But yet they want a lot of money for their firm because it's worth a lot of money to them. And if they're going to give up ownership of it, they got to get money. So now you have the challenge, well, how do you finance this thing? What kind of lender is going to put up money when the income is limited and there are no assets in the firm, because the firm just makes income and the partners just take it out, right, to pay themselves? That's what they do. So you got to structure all this. You got to figure out, how do I make this work for the lender? How do I make this work for the partners? How do I ensure everybody that nothing's going to happen to this firm that's going to hurt the clients? So all those questions have to get answered, and you have to be a little bit patient. But if you're passionate about what you do, if you really love it, if you take the time to build the relationships with all the people whose support is required to make the deal happen, then you can do it. But it takes the tenacity, and that's where the tenacity part comes in. 3 years it took to bring this to this point. And that's not the only deal. It's taken me a long time to do. All right, so you got to be patient. Arthur and I are worked on some deals, and I got to say, it's been tenacious, right, Arthur? And a long time, and nothing happens for a long time. So
that's right.
It takes those things to make it all work.
Wow, wow. That's amazing right there. And congratulations on locking down that CPA firm right there. That sounds like a super strategic move. I mean, that is
Well,
some mastermind stuff.
and it doesn't stop there. Okay.
Mhm,
One of the things that we're going to be doing with the CPA firm
mhm,
is doing what's called a roll-up. Okay. What a roll-up is you take a certain type of business. You don't just buy one, because one has certain costs and certain expenses against their income. But if you can get another one like it and add it to it, then you start to develop something called economies of scale, efficiencies. For example, not only are we acquiring this one, but within a month and a half after the closing, we'll be pulling in a second acquisition into that as part of the roll-up. Now, why does that make sense? Okay, it makes sense because we've already done the negotiation with them. We know what's going to happen. We're just waiting to get this one closed now to bring them in. Now, what is the deal that makes it worthwhile for them to come in? Well, first of all, we can pay them a premium for the business because when they come in, they're going to make us more profitable. They're going to move into our offices in New York and right in Midtown Manhattan, so their rent goes away. So the same income is going to come in, but their rent goes away. Now we don't need that receptionist, so that one cost goes away. We don't need their compliance officer, so that cost goes away. So there's a whole bunch of costs that are being replicated because there's two locations out there that when we pull them into one, a lot of that money gets saved. So it becomes more profitable once we do that. The client base goes up. The ability to cross market and do a lot of the things that we do is increased. So the goal is not just to do this once, but to do it many times and then take it public. Remember the reason that we started this conversation? We talked about taking my first company public when, back in 1969. Well, the reason that that's an important part of this is, and you're going to love this, okay? This is part of the math of business. It's part of the mathematics of business.
mhm.
When I buy a CPA firm, I'm buying them for 2.5 to 3 times their annual income.
Mm.
Okay. You take the company public, the value of the company as a public company where it can trade, the stock can trade on the markets,
Mhm,
is not 2 or 3 times its earnings.
mhm.
It's 20, 21 to 22 times its earnings. So
Wow.
I can take companies that I buy for a cost of 2 to 3 times what they're earning. And once I get it to a public company, that company's worth 20 plus times what the
Wow.
earnings is. So
Wow.
there's a magnification in the value of taking the same business and having it as a public company versus as a private company. So the goal is to take these companies, consolidate them, take it public, and I'm happy to share that increased value with the partners of those CPA firms that I bought. So I don't just buy them out and then I go make all the money.
Mhm.
I buy most of their interest out and I leave them with a significant ownership that when we complete this process, they're going to make a fortune on their share. Okay.
Wow.
So now you
Wow.
put yourself in the
Mhm.
CPA's place. When they sell me the company, I pay them a lot of cash.
Hmm.
Then over the next few years, I pay them the balance of the cash because I don't pay it to them all at once of the purchase price. So I pay them a big chunk of it up front, and over the next couple of years, more. Then I bring more business into the CPA firm, which lets them earn more income from the firm. Then I take the whole thing public, which gives them a big win on the part that they still own. That's why if you do it right, nobody says no to you. You have to know how to communicate all those pieces to the various parties. And once you've learned that, you become a monster in what you can accomplish and the timing and the speed at which you can accomplish it. One of the things that you said to me was, well, how do you cram all that into one lifetime? Right? That
Right.
was what you
Right.
asked me a little while ago.
Oh yeah,
Well, it's
definitely.
called leverage. Okay. I have the same as everybody else on the planet, 2 hands, 1 brain, 2 feet, 1 body, and I am a microbe in a vast universe. Okay. I'm just this little guy. Okay. What can I do? Just me. But I can move mountains if I can leverage myself through other people. And so the art of business is how do you leverage yourself, your intellect, your innovation, your insights into other people and through other people so that it's not just you doing it, you're bringing together, because of the advantages to everyone, hundreds of people, eventually thousands of people. And then this guy is no longer a micro because he's leveraging himself through thousands of people. And when you take your company public, you now leverage yourself through tens of thousands of people. Okay.
Wow.
So it's all about leverage. Now, in business, there's not just one kind of leverage. Okay. One kind of leverage is financial leverage, and that's the kind we've been talking about. But you got to love the 21st century, guys, because they added to that electronic leverage. In other words, I can do something once, and I can benefit from that as it's replicated out into the cyberspace tens of thousands of times to other people. You do this recording once, okay? But tens of thousands of people can see it and benefit from it. And if you monetize it correctly, then you're sharing in some of that benefit that you're giving through this leverage to all the people through the internet, through all the different social media, through all the different things that are going on. Life is about leverage. Okay, as long as you are just working for a paycheck, one job for $1, there's a limit to what you can do. The first thing I show the CPAs is, look, your standard business model is you leverage time for dollars, hours for dollars. You put in X number of hours, you bill your clients at this rate, you work these hours, they pay you this money. Well, you can earn an income doing that, but you're not going to get wealthy. Okay, you have to find ways to leverage yourself in order to do that. And what I do is I provide people who don't know how to do that on their own the insights and the ability and the resources and the platforms and the facility to leverage themselves financially, to leverage themselves electronically, to leverage themselves through other people to make their innovations, their ideas, all worth way more than they can if they're having to do it one-on-one. Life is about leverage.
Wow. That's a extremely, new concept to me of how you've accomplished that.
Now just listen to this. Talk about a concept. Now, again, I got to think of the guy who said this. This was a guy, I don't know whether it was one of these older guys, like Copernicus, like it was like one of the old, mathematicians. They talked about leverage. They talked about, give me a place to stand and I can move the world. Okay, leverage is not a new thing. The leverage goes back to the very earliest thinkings of mankind, and it's how mankind got from one stage to another stage to another. But back in those days, it was limited. Okay, if you go back far enough, it was limited. I mean, think about this. There was a time it took 3 months to cross the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean, right? So when you wanted to sail from Europe it took 3 months to get here. All right, so how much leverage did you have? Even if you got a ship with hundreds of people working the ship, it still took 3 months to get them here. Okay, that's so right. Leverage was limited. Information traveled at the speed of a horse. Okay, that's how fast, that was the fastest knowledge could travel. Okay, you could give a guy a message and it was fast as he could ride with it. That's how fast the message could travel. Well, we live at a time when message travel at 186,000 miles a second at the speed of light. Okay, so your ability to leverage yourself today, to compress time, time's not your enemy anymore. We can move things at the speed of light. Okay, so it's a question of how do you stay current with this stuff? How do you stay at a place where you can see and feel and touch the technology, the things that are going on, the different ways to leverage yourself, the different ways to speed up what you're doing, the different ways to make time and your friend instead of your enemy, to make distance disappear, to make one effort replicatable tens, if not hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of times. All right? That's what you should be thinking about as an entrepreneur. Okay? And that's where the big monies are made, is to think about this. Now, let me give you an example of the difference even in things like business models, how money gets made. In the 21st century, in the 20th century, let's go back a little bit, okay, there was this thing called a cab company. And if I wanted to be in the taxi business, I literally maybe got a garage operation someplace or a facility. I went out and bought cabs. I paid for all these medallions that I needed for the right to operate it as a cab business. I had to equip those with communication equipment, meters. I put a lot of money, a lot of investment. I had to go out and hire people. Those people, were just employees. They maybe didn't take good care of the cab, so I had high maintenance costs in keeping the cab on the road. I mean, it was like, to be a cab company was a big deal, right? And at the end, I was limited in the amount of capital that I could put in place in order to have more cabs. And then along comes this company called Uber and this company called Lyft, and they turned the whole industry on its side, because what they did is they said, all right, how do we apply 21st century technology to all this? How do we multiply the leverage factor in how we build a cab company? So they rethink the entire idea of a cab company, and what they realize is a better business model. And the better business model is not the taxi cab business model. It's the facilitation platform model. In other words, the money today is being made by people who take and create a technology facilitated platform to enable other people to do the stuff. Let's take Lyft or Uber. Okay, they're the biggest cab companies in the world. They don't own a single taxi cab, but what they provide is a technology facilitated platform that enables you, the guy who owns the car and owns the phone, the cell phone through which you can communicate, a way to take your cell phone in your car and make a whole lot more money in it by being a taxi cab. Whenever you want to do it today at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 7 o'clock, that's your time. You just go do it. Okay, you plug into our facilitated platform, and you're going to make money driving a cab. You're going to get your orders. You're going to know where to pick people up. You're going to have the best technology that lets you know where your guy is and where you're at. Lets them know where you're at. Knows that when you're going to arrive. They don't know anything about that in a regular taxi cab, right? That you don't know when the guy's going to show up, but you do when you're taking a Lyft or when you're taking an Uber. So they take this platform and they enable you with who's already owns the asset, who already owns all of the resources, and you want to make money with that asset, and they facilitate your ability to do that. And they don't own your taxi cab. They don't want to own your taxi cab. All they want to do is facilitate you to be out there doing your taxi cab thing, and they want to share in the revenue that they help you create, right? And once they got
they own no inventory.
Yeah, no, they don't have any cabs. They don't have any maintenance. They don't have to hire anybody. They don't have any payroll taxes. They don't have anything. They have a facilities platform. All right, same thing was done with Airbnb, largest lodging company in the world, and they don't own a single condo. They don't own a hotel room. Nothing. All right, they take and have a platform that enables you, who own the condo, who own the townhouse, or whatever it is, and you want to make money with that when you're not using it, you plug into their technology facilitated platform, and somebody's now able to occupy your facility or your place when you're not using it, and the asset that you already own, you're now making money with it. You're sharing it with the good folks who have Airbnb. They don't own a single one of these things. They don't have to maintain them. They don't have to insure them. They don't have to do anything. All they have to do is provide you with a platform that lets you make money off of what you already own. Okay, so if you look at the difference, you see that's leverage. That's leverage. That's right. Because with just a platform, leverage. Just with a platform, they take and they've got at their disposal gazillions of dollars worth of assets that are deployed doing what they're doing, and they don't have to own a single one of them. And they leverage off of everybody else's assets. You see, that's leverage. So that's the new thinking. That's the way people need to think today in order to really optimize and monetize their own interests. And this is the things we teach people. We teach them how to do this stuff, how to create these types of financial, electronic, business model leverage.
Wow, that's really that's a solid understanding of all this technology that you have, more so than even people who are younger than myself, in their 20s possibly. And to be able to have such a depth of knowledge, where you've grown up in a time, started your career from the 60s and seen so many different eras. How do you maintain such a mindset where you're keeping up with all the knowledge, and you're never really, it seems like you would never say to yourself, oh, that's something I can't really understand, or can't that's for the young people or something like that. You're able to just keep learning and keep going.
Right. Well, here's what makes it all possible. Okay. You see, I first of all, I started my college career when I went to college. I started as a physics major at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I was going to be a rocket scientist.
Oh, wow.
But
Wow.
I realized that, look, I could be a rocket scientist and not make a lot of money. You see, that's sort of a little bit of a turnoff for me. So I figured, well, maybe I ought to change my orientation here. But you see, remember what I said an entrepreneur was. An entrepreneur is a person with a vision who orchestrates the time, talent, and resources of other people to make their vision real. What that
That's right.
says by definition is I'm not an expert in anything. I'm not an expert in social media. I'm not an expert in how you do things on the net. I'm an expert at a vision. Okay, I can see clearly what needs to happen. I know the methodologies by which we can make it happen. I know that other people have what I want. And I know that other people will give me what I want if I give them what they want. And if I know how to structure a business, I know how to structure it to give other people what they're going to want. So all I need to do is identify what do I need in my business, who has it, and how do I give them what they want if they give it to me. See, that's not that tough. And I don't have to be an expert in all those things. Now, do I have to know that there is this thing called social media? Sure. Do I have to have a general idea of how it works? Yeah. But I don't need to be an expert. Okay. I just need to know what it can do and how it can basically work. And then I leave it to the other people when I create an advantage for them to take their knowledge and make it work in what I do. That's where they make their money, and I make mine by giving them that opportunity. Okay, so you don't have to be an expert in everything, but what you do have to have an understanding of is how do you orchestrate? How do you take your vision and orchestrate the time, talent, and resources of other people to make the vision real? If you get your arms around that, then you don't need to know the details of all the rest. Somebody's going to have to, and you got to bring them in. You got to make it attractive for them. It's like, Uber. If they're going to run a cab business, they need somebody with a cab. They need somebody with a car. They need somebody with a phone. Okay, they can't do it without that. But they don't have to have those things. They don't have to be the expert on how you maintain your car in order to keep it running as this, in effect, taxi cab. Okay, they just need to get the people to the places where their facilitation makes it all possible for the other people to take their expertise and apply it to the solution. So it's just a difference in the way of thinking. Let me give you one more difference in today's 21st century thinking. I have to say categorically the leaders in a business model called strategic aggregation. And what strategic aggregation is a method of ultimate leverage of business-to-business relationships. Let me give you an example. Let's say I own a real estate brokerage firm, okay? And the thing that's true about me is I make my money through one revenue source, and that is a piece of property that I own, or a piece of property that my client owns is sold and I get a commission. Or somebody comes in my door looking for a piece of property and I bring them to a piece of property for sale and they buy it, then I make a commission. But I got one revenue source. It's called a commission on the sale of real estate. And I spend all my money marketing to get people to come in my door because they're interested in buying or listing real estate for sale, right? Okay. And then when they do their thing, they walk out the door and all the money I spent to do that maybe brought me some income, but now I'm done. So all the money that I spent, I only got the benefit from it once. Now, somebody might say, well, if you maintain the relationship, they'll come back in 5 or 10 years when they do their next real estate transaction. Well, maybe they will and maybe they won't. Today's memories of people are very short and they don't remember who they did business with 5 to 10 years ago. So the chances are they're gone from my life. That's 20th century business model. Now let's look at 21st century business model called strategic aggregation. If I'm in the real estate business as a real estate broker, there are other people in businesses that make their money from the same client I just have and at the same approximate time that I make the money. Okay, and They have a common clientele to mine that they serve at about the same time as I'm serving my client. So who would that be? Well, what about a moving company? Person's buying or selling a home, they got to move, right? What about a renovation company? I want to sell a house. I want to fix it up before I sell it so I can get more money. Or I just bought the house and I want to fix it up because it isn't kind of like what I really had in mind when I bought it. I want to make it more mine, right? So whether it's painters, electrician, remodelers, whether it's an escrow company who's going to handle the escrow on the transaction, whether it's a lender, right, a mortgage company, it's going to want to loan money. I mean, there's all these people that are servicing these people who are buying and selling homes. Well, if I'm smart in today's world, I strategically aggregate with these folks, okay? And here's what we do, okay? We set up a common methodology, a common marketing theme, and we're appealing to a common client. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a cross-marketing, a facility. That's what we do, is we set that facility up, where if I'm the guy who's the moving guy and I get a call from somebody who says, I'm thinking of moving to Chicago, and I'm in Los Angeles right now, right? Well, good. When are you planning to do this? Well, I think I'm going to do this somewhere around this coming March or this coming April, okay? And you say, well, great. Are you selling a place? Because that's not the question they would normally ask, right? Well, yeah. Do you have a broker? Okay. Have you found a place to buy? No. Have you found a broker? No. Well, I'll take care of that for you. I'll make sure you have connecting to you a broker where you are and a broker where you're going to that can help you buy and sell your facility. So now I'm going to set up a cross-marketing facility where the person who's just the mover is now in a position to connect that client to the broker at both ends. Or maybe they have a broker at one end, but they don't have the broker at the other end. Maybe they got both brokers. But it doesn't matter, because now my guy says to him, now when you get there, have you found the house yet? No. Or the answer might be yes. Okay, so the question then is, well, is it exactly the way you want it to be? Well, no, I'm probably going to do a little remodeling when I get there. Well, great, we'll hook you up with the remodeling. So you start to see where this is going, right? Now, the one thing I will promise you is that if I'm the mover, I don't want to know diddly about who's a broker and where. I don't want to know diddly about who can remodel a house there. I don't want to know anything about who's going to finance their transaction. What I want to do is plug into a system that the minute I put my client in there who's contacting me for moving, there's a system that does all this, that I don't have to do it, that all I have to do is plug in. So we create this thing called strategic aggregation, along with the software that automates the whole process, with people who are trained to facilitate that whole process. So once information starts coming into the system, everything happens, and I'm now cross-marketing my clients. And it's done in a way where if I'm the source of a client into the system, I'm in heaven, because every sale that's now made to that client through this ecosystem of service providers that we've put in place, I'm getting a share of that revenue. So now, instead of having one revenue source for a client, I've got 30, 40 revenue sources that I'm sharing in.
Wow.
Okay. What's more is, because there's 30 or 40 other vendors doing the same type of thing in these related fields to me, when they're getting the client, it's the broker. And the broker is now again, remember, I said we systematized all this, but if I'm the broker's side, and the question is now being asked of my client, do you have your moving company yet? Okay, these other service providers now become a source of new clients for me. And yes, I'm going to share some of my revenue with them. I would have that as a marketing expense anyway. So you see, what we do is we create the technology facilitated platform that allows strategic aggregation to multiply the amount of clients that all the businesses in the ecosystem have, and to give them multiple revenue sources from the clients they bring into the ecosystem.
Wow.
You see the difference in the thinking. It's leverage. It's leverage.
Right.
I'm leveraging my client through 30 or 40 different revenue sources. And I'm leveraging 30 or 40 different similar related businesses to producing clients for me.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And when you start to think, you see that's a difference in thinking. It's a difference in thinking.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now, if I'm just a salesperson for a single product or service, I'm back to being me. Microbe in a vast universe. It's just, 2 hands, 2 feet, 1 brain, and a limited time. But once I start thinking systemically, once I start thinking about the ways to now organize this in a different and unique way, taking advantage of today's technology, I become a monster, the things that I can create. Okay, so that's the difference. And if I can convey nothing else to the folks who are enjoying, hopefully, this podcast today,
Definitely.
is that it's a new world out there. Okay, and it's worth your while to pay attention to what's working today that didn't even exist 10, 15 years ago. And getting comfortable with them and learning how to leverage yourself through other people. Learning how to do it in a field of your passion. Because you know what? If you're passionate about a field, you'll see things nobody else will see in that field. Okay? You'll see things that nobody feels because they don't have your passion for it. They don't have your insights for it. So you go where you're passionate, you apply this type of thinking, and then you apply tenacity, because it doesn't happen overnight. It's like these ideas are great, but even as great as the ideas are, believe me, they don't come together because I snap my fingers. They come together because I put a lot of energy into it over time, and I build the rapport and the relationship with the people that it's going to take to make it happen. So that's the thrill today of being an entrepreneur. It's like you're right in the middle of people. You're exchanging energy with people who harmonize on your frequency. That's another reason for doing it in your passion, because when you're talking with other people who like what you like, those conversations are fantastic, right? Okay, you just think about it. You're talking about people who love what you love. You guys are like bats flying around in the belfry, right? I mean, you couldn't have a better time. Okay. On the other hand, if you're doing something that's a grunt work for you, that's work. Okay. But if you're doing something that you harmonize with other people, and you're doing it as a function of enjoyment, but you know that you have to monetize it. So it's got to come into that form where you've got to be able to identify, well, where does the money come in? Where does it have to go to? And how does it work for everybody to get more of it? Okay. That has to be part of the thinking. Okay. Otherwise it's a hobby. So, right. So
well, you was breaking down layman's terms about strategic aggregation, which is a phenomenal formula, and I know it very, very well because I know you've been actually educating me about that powerful platform, and I know that strategic aggregation is going to take the world by storm. It's already taking the world by storm on the underground level. Now, you talked about an entrepreneur is a man or a woman that has a vision. And you talked about a powerful company, which is Uber. Now, Uber, years ago, they went to Mark Cuban, the billionaire that owns the Dallas Mavericks. And they asked him for some capital to start the brand, but Mark Cuban couldn't see the vision. And he said he's kicking himself in the butt today because he said that he wished he would have made that initial investment with helping him out. And then Uber, they also went to Gary Vaynerchuk. Now, Gary Vaynerchuk, he's basically strong on the internet. And years ago, they asked him for $10,000, but he said he couldn't see the vision. But he said that $10,000 today would be worth $30 million to him. And he said he regrets that to this very day, Gordon, with not making that $10,000 investment by investing in the Uber brand. Because basically he couldn't see the vision.
Right. This is what separates entrepreneurs from everybody else. Because you got to be able to take a bunch of no's, because there's a bunch of idiots out there, and I'm putting that in quotation mark. No, they're not idiots, but they're idiots when it comes to your stuff.
That's right. That's right.
They see the stuff they work with every day because they live with it. Okay, I'm talking about the Mark Cubans of the world. I mean, these are bright guys. Okay, but when it comes to your stuff, they're idiots. Okay, they don't see the vision. They're not inclined to see the vision. It's not their passion. They don't really feel or see the need. And it takes a lot of tenacity on your part to crack through that. Now, this is not new. I remember when I was in grade school, and one of my courses, they're talking about this guy called Fulton, who invented the steam engine or the steamboat or whatever it was, you know. And it's like how many times he had gotten no from this investor and that investor and this, until finally he gets the investor who will go along with him, and finally they get their first steamboat produced, and finally they, I mean, it's a lot of finallys, right? To get there. Tenacity, tenacity, tenacity. So the world is full of people who just don't get it, okay? And it's okay. They're not supposed to get it. They're not you. They don't have the vision. It helps if you're a good communicator. One of the gifts that God gave me is the ability to communicate, and the ability to take an idea and to put it into a set of words that enable people to hear the words and picture the vision. If you're gifted that way, then you're a born entrepreneur. I mean, I can tell you. For other people, they got to kind of work at that. They really got to put a little more time into how they develop their communication skills.
It's funny
So,
you say that. So sorry to interrupt you, because that's exactly what I was thinking. And my next question was going to be that, Gordon, you're an extremely effective communicator. And I see those exact same characteristics in Arthur also. I think by you guys interacting, Arthur has developed to become an extremely effective communicator. And I see that same thing from you, Gordon. And that's what you were just, I think, about to go into. Someone such as myself, I feel like I need a lot of work on that area. What would you say, someone could do to improve as a
right.
communicator?
Let me tell you the most important thing about business, other than what I've already told you. And that is a thing called partnership. Okay. The beauty of business is you don't have to do stuff by yourself. And it's very rare that one person is gifted with all of the attributes that are required to be successful. They're usually lacking something. And if they don't cure what they're lacking in, as good as they are in everything else, they will most often fail. So it's like a bicycle chain. If you can picture the chain that drives your bicycle, right? You can have this wonderful 100 links that are all working perfectly. But if one link's broken, the doggone chain isn't going to work. Okay, you got to have all the links in your chain in order to make the bike work. So it's the same thing with business. You got to have all the pieces, but you don't have to have them, but you have to have them as part of what you're doing. So the key to being successful in business is to be able to look at what don't you have, what aren't you good at, and then find a partner who will fill that void for you. So that way you aren't stuck in this never-ending cycle of trying to make your bike chain work, but you don't have all the links. And the beauty of a business is that it can be structured so there's a place for everybody. There's the communication place. I mean, you look at a big company, right? They got a communication department. They got a production department. They got a marketing department. They got a personnel department. Why? Because nobody knows how to do everything, right? So they get all the pieces, and then they have to get hung together in an organizational way. And the business is structured so that everybody benefits when they all pull the chain together and make the business work. Well, that's the beauty of a business. So if you're really, in the old days, again, I'm going back into the more classic models now. Businesses used to have, successful businesses used to have what was called, and women forgive me because your women aren't mentioned in this, you had your inside man and your outside man. Now today, in today's technology, you would say you have your inside person and your outside person, right? Okay, what the inside person was is that's the person who did the production, who made the business work administratively and production wise. The outside person was the marketing guy. He was the good communicator who couldn't produce a thing if his life depended on it. Okay, but he can get out there and sell it. Okay, so you had your outside guy who made the sales, you had your inside guy who delivered the productivity and the quality, and that's how the business worked. And if you took either one of them and took them out of the equation, the business failed. So the idea that people could come together and supplement each other was crucial. So if you take yourself, for example, if your skill set is not communication, and I find it really hard to believe that you would say that, because here you are in a communication field with a set of headsets on, right? Talking into a microphone to people all over the planet, right? And that's certainly a communication function, right? So you got something going for you there that maybe you're not owning up to. But the point is, if I'm the guy who can sell but I can't produce, then I want a partner who can produce and can't sell. because if he can sell and produce, he doesn't need me, right? So I want somebody who needs me because I can do what they can't do, and I want to have somebody that I can relate to who can do what I can't do. So together we can kind of walk into the sunset and make a lot of money together. So the first thing I tell people to do in business is take a good stock of yourself. What are you good at? What are you bad at? What do you like to do? What do you hate to do? What do you excel at? What do you flop on your butt every time you try it? And don't let the thing you flop on your butt for deter you from doing the thing that you want to do. Just realize you got to supplement yourself with a partner. You've got to find somebody who's your opposite. You've got to take a little time and seek out that person. And if you're doing this in a field of your passion, I will guarantee you will find that person, because you're both passionate about the same thing. There's an incredible energy in the universe that's going to pull you together. You're going to meet each other as a process of sharing your passion. Okay. And the idea is to recognize, gosh, here's that guy who's passionate about this, and he's what I'm not, or she's what I'm not, right? Okay. And that's the opportunity to realize that you can do more together. The only thing you have to do is make sure your communication between you is good and that you respect each other. In other words, that you have mutual respect, because if you think they're an idiot because they don't know what you know, you don't have a good partner. You got to think they're a genius at what they know, and they're smart enough to know what they don't know, and that's why they aligned with you. And it has to work the other way too. Now, if you can come at it in that way, you got the makings of a potentially great business.
Wow.
Wow, very well said.
That's powerful, Gordon. And like you said, that's leverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, I want to do a commercial. Can I do a commercial?
Yes.
Oh, please, please.
For anybody who wants to find out a whole lot more about what I do and where they can connect with how they can go do it, I just want to introduce them to a website. It's called Getting Rich Your Way, gettingrichyourway.com. And what it'll take you through is a 26-minute video that shows you how people I've worked with get into business. They don't have any cash of their own. They learn these methods of leverage, and they go out and they build phenomenal businesses. So in a way, the answers to a lot of the questions you just asked me will be on that video. And it's just called Getting Rich Your Way. And by the way, there was a reason why it's called Getting Rich Your Way. I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of these systems in the past where people were going to teach you how to make money, but it was their way. It was in real estate. It was in multi-level marketing. It was right. It was in the stock market. Right. It's their way. Right. So if your
with
way,
the audio cassette tapes.
Yeah. Right. If your way isn't their way, you fail out of it in a hurry because it's not you. You're not living your life. You're trying to live somebody else's life, and it's not working for you. So the whole idea of Getting Rich Your Way was to take into account that people don't want to just get rich. They want to get rich doing what they love doing. So this video was designed to show people how everything is a business. Everything has an opportunity to have it as a business. And once you identify what you want to do, then the next step is how do you turn that into a business? And then how does that business make a tremendous amount of money in addition to letting you live the life that you want to live? My sense is, as human beings, we're not designed to work for a living. You really weren't, okay? You were designed to enjoy your passion in life and to make it work for you in a way that makes you wealthy and a lot of money. And once you flip that orientation, that you're not supposed to be working for the money, the passion you have is supposed to be working for you. If you can just make that little bit of a flip, then life takes on a whole new dimension. I have to tell you, in my adult life, I've never worked a day in my life. And in case you haven't figured this out, I'm having more fun than anybody right now, okay? Talking to you guys about what I love doing, which is creating wealth, creating businesses, working with other people who are entrepreneurial and who want to build a great life for themselves and great services and products for their community and a great economy for the country, okay? This is what I love doing. I do this all day long. I love it. I don't work a day in my life. I almost get to the point where at night when it's time to go to sleep, it's, oh no, I got to go to bed tonight. I got to stop talking to wonderful people.
Right.
And people say, "Oh, you're crazy, Bizar." No, I'm bizarre. That's all. It's just that That's the way you live your life, to me, is you put yourself in a place of total enjoyment of the fact that you are productive at what you do. You feel great about what you do. You love getting the results that you get. You don't resent for a moment the time that you invest in things. Now, let me give you an example, and I know I can speak to you directly, Arthur. How many times have we worked with people where we work with them over and over and over again until finally, after a lot of work with that person, they start getting results? Well, you can't do that if you don't like what you're doing. Can't do it.
That's
Okay, but
true.
that's what it takes to get the result. Anyway, Getting Rich Your Way is designed, gettingrichyurway.com is designed to help people get wherever it is in life that they want in a way that's going to give them the wealth and the enjoyment that they want all at the same time.
Awesome. Definitely. I know I'm definitely going to be checking it out, and I'm sure all the listeners will also be checking it out at gettingrichyurway.com. That's awesome.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. And to everyone that's listening to us right now, go to gettingrichyurway.com. Gordon has incredible content that could take your mindset and your business to a whole nother level. But remember, you have to implement what you learn. Knowledge is not power. The implementation of knowledge, that's what makes it become powerful. Gordon,
Well said.
I want to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about taking businesses public. Now, I know once businesses go public, they basically are formulating a partnership with the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. But then we have entrepreneurs and business owners, they want to take their businesses public, and they do. And then they say, you know what, it's too much red tape with the government. They want to buy back their stocks and take that company that they took public to make it private again. Why is the entrepreneurs want to take their business public, and then once they go public, they decide, you know what, I want to buy back the shares and take it back private? Why?
Great questions. Great questions. Hopefully, I'll give you as good an answer as your question. So here we go. Let's start with taking a company public. In the old days, it was really hard to take a company public. You had to hire a lawyer who would take you through the legal ramifications of what you could do and what you couldn't do, because the SEC was prevalent everywhere, and their regulations were this thick, right? You know, I mean, huge, that thick, huge. Okay, then you had to get an investment banker who had the knowledge and the resources and the connections to actually underwrite the stock and raise the money. Okay, and then you had to pay all those people up front to go do that. So you had to be successful before you could be successful, right? You had to have the money already made to take it to that next step. And the regulation in that process was awesome. Well, life has changed. There is a way to raise money called a Reg A, REG period, regulation Reg A, and you can raise up to $50 million in a Reg A. You can do it online. You can do it under an exemption, as an exemption to the normal regulatory requirements, where you can only normally offer certain businesses to what are called, or certain investments to what are called accredited investors, meaning that they already have $1 million of net worth. They already make a couple $100,000 a year in income. So they're not considered members of the general public. They're considered knowledgeable and sophisticated investors. You don't need to do that anymore. The exemptions are all there. So you can just by learning. I mean, you got to learn. You got to go in and read all stuff, but you got to know where to go. So here's where to go. You're going to look up just put it into Google, public offering Reg A. Okay, and if you know how to follow the bouncing ball, you can now go through Google and start reading about this. And after a couple of hours of reading, you're going to know what this is, how it works, what you need to do to execute it for yourself. But it's now doable for you, and you don't need a ton of money to go put it together. You don't need to hire a ton of lawyers to go put it together. You don't need to hire an investment banker. You will have to have some knowledge of social media, and if you don't have the knowledge, you're going to have to take a little time and learn how to reach out through social media to get people to subscribe to your Reg A. But raising 50 million bucks, it's worth a little bit of your time to learn maybe how to do that. Okay, so, and remember partnerships. So if you're saying to yourself, well, I'm not sure I know how to do this, or I would feel comfortable with that, well, then just learn enough to figure out what you're not comfortable with. Get a partner. who's going to fill in that void, right? So together, you're going to have the combined capability of doing a Reg A. And once you've done that, you now can have a public company. It'll if you follow it all the way through, you can have it trading. When you get your Reg A done, doesn't mean you can't take some of this money that you just collected and go hire an investment banking firm who will then make a market in your stock, make sure that there's a lot of liquidity because your stock is trading constantly, because they'll have the capacity to do that. And because you're already public, getting them to do that is not difficult for you, because you're right exactly where they want you as a client. So they're going to want to do this for you. And by then you can afford to pay lawyers and all that stuff. So getting public today is not that hard. And there are exemptions to the rules. It's not easy, but it's doable, okay? It's doable. All right, so let's say you get your company public. Let's start with that. Now your question was, well, okay, why do people go to, and they do this public offering thing, and then decide they don't want to be public anymore? Well, once you are public, you now have to report all the things you do in business on the right forms to the SEC, and they are very diligent in making sure that you don't lie to them, that you report it all in a certain way, and that complying with the regulations can now be pretty onerous. So some of these folks who took their company public scratch their head and say, you know, I got the money, my business is now successful. Why do I want to deal with all this regulation? So then they go buy the business back from the public, because they got the money, the business is up and running, and why deal with all the regulation if you can just buy the company back and be private? So some people decide they don't want to be a public company. I wouldn't do that, because the reason I went public is more than the money. It's to have public shareholders who I can now get to be more of my customers. I mean, think about this. If you own stock in my company, why wouldn't you want to buy my products or services? If you're buying products or services, why wouldn't I want to have you as an owner of my company? Because you're going to be a more loyal customer of the company. Okay, you're going to be wanting to tell your friends about your company that you own a piece of, which is going to give me more customers. So you see, if I know how to run a public company right, it's a way more asset than it is liability. Okay, and if I want to acquire other companies, I now can print money myself. I don't need the government's money. I can print my own. I do that by printing more shares. And then I can take shares that have this value and I can give it to somebody who will give me their company, right? So I now use stock to make acquisitions, and I can print those. I don't need the government's money to go do that. So there's all these reasons why I would not want to go and reverse that issue. I personally wouldn't. But for somebody that was, hopefully that answers your question, somebody might just say, look, I've reached a place in life where I'm fat, dumb, and happy. Why should I deal with the government regulation? I'll buy my public shareholders out and live a nice, quiet life, right? With lots of money from my business, okay? So it's all in what you want in life. It's all in what you want in life. And that's where everybody should be making their own decisions about what's important to them. I have no qualm whatsoever with a person who says to me, you know, if I'm just making $10,000 a month, and I know that that money is going to come in every month, I don't need to make any more. I have what I want. I watch TV. I drink my beer. I have the right broad on my lap. Pardon my French. You know, and I'm happy. I don't feel that that person needs any more motivation in life than that. That's cool. They got what they want. But I don't know. I mean, that wouldn't be enough for me. And if you're, and if you're, and whoever you are, it may not be enough for you. And if whatever it is that is important to you, that's what you should be pursuing in life. That's, to me, the great part of being an American. You know, nobody sets the rules for me. Nobody sets the ceiling. Nobody tells me what I can be. Nobody says I have to do anything. Nobody denies me resources. As long as I'm willing to go out and get them, I'll get them. Okay, it's all out there. I just have to be communicative in the way in which I ask people to lend me their resources or bring resources to me. And I do that by creating a value proposition for them that is so powerful they cannot say no. Okay, the idea is you have to give people a value proposition. Again, Arthur, I'm going to go back to some of the things that we work with. Okay, And
Right.
you've witnessed this with me. You've done this with me. So I know that you can confirm what I'm saying. We have
Right.
people where they have a business. We need something that they do. So instead of paying them money, we find out what they need, and I give them a way to solve the need. Okay, and by giving them a way to solve the need, they give me what I need from them from that business. I'm thinking of, you probably know a half a dozen people that we did something like that with. I didn't pay them
That's
money, but
right.
they gave us resources to go get other things done with. But I gave them a value that, because of the value I gave to them, they were willing to give that value to us. So
That's
part of
right.
being an entrepreneur is understanding what resources you have, what benefits you can be to other people, and then how to leverage those resources into getting from them what you need from them. Life is a grand barter. Okay, it's a grand barter. What have you got in exchange for what do you need? Okay, and the key is trying to understand what it is that other people need and how can you, with your resources, supply that to them. Because if you can, you don't need money. Okay, you're going to get everything you need without the dollars because they're getting from you what they need. And the ability to do that is cultivated. I wasn't born with it. I developed it over time. I started to realize, well, look, I know certain things. We live in an information age. Information has value. If I can give somebody information that they can turn into money, and they want that information to turn it into money, then I can barter that for something they have that I need. You see?
Mm-hmm.
It's a different way of thinking. I don't need money to have what I want. I need to have an ability to exchange something I have for something somebody else wants. Okay, and it doesn't
Wow.
matter if it's a physical
That's
thing
right.
or a
That
mental thing.
that's the energy.
Yeah,
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Absolutely. That's the energy.
yeah,
You're really, lifting the skirt up and, for lack of better words, and
What?
just revealing
Yes.
the reality of
Now,
it.
yeah,
now
yeah.
Gordon, we that's I mean, you've been dropping so much jewels tonight, and I'm very juiced, and I know the audience is juiced up. You dropping a lot of phenomenal underground knowledge that they might not be familiar with, or they are familiar with it, but you put it so much in a way where it's adaptable and it's doable if they just implement this phenomenal knowledge that you're dropping on us on the show tonight. Now, I have questions where people want to know if I own a lot of apartment deals, and let's just say their acquisitions is valued at 500 million or 600 million, and they want
You're
to
talking
take
about,
their
obviously, you're talking about the average guy on the street here now, right?
and they and and going, they so anxious where they're like, look, my anchor properties, which is my apartment deals, is valued at 400, 500, 600 million. And I want to take my real estate company public. What advice can you give them where they may be stuck or they could be afraid or they might not even have nobody to really educate them on their real estate portfolio that's valued at 400, 500, 600 million, but they want to take that real estate company public? What advice could you give them where they can actually take the necessary action steps to take their real estate company public?
All right. First of all, the information I'm going to give you will be of no value to 99% of the people listening because they don't have $400 million of real estate. But the thinking process will be. The thinking process will be. Because learning how to think is the most important thing in life. If you know how to think and how to create value in your mind, nothing will stop you. But let's take your example. Most people who have real estate and who have taken their real estate companies public just do exactly that. They got real estate, they take it public, it produces a certain amount of income, it has a certain value. And they've picked up pennies and they've left an incredible number of dollars on the table when they did that. And yet that's the common wisdom, right? The first thing you have to understand is what puts value in a public company. In a public company, value is not created by its assets. Value is created by its earnings. So it's earnings per share that translates into value in a public company. A public company is worth some multiple of its earnings per share, or earnings. So if that's the case, then it doesn't matter how much assets I have. Nobody's going to give me credit for that. They only want to know what's my earnings per share. Look at any company in the public marketplace, and the only thing you will see is what does it sell at as a multiple of earnings per share. So it's 10 times earnings, it's 20 times earnings. There are tech companies that sell at 50 or 100 times earnings, but everything's measured in the public marketplace at earnings per share. So what's the point of owning assets? I don't want a public company that owns assets. I want a public company that has earnings. That's what puts value on it, okay? Well, once you know that, taking a real estate company in its traditional form public is worthless or useless. Why? Because you got all this asset that nobody gives you any credit for. They don't put any more value on your company because you got all this apartment brick and mortar. They don't give you any more credit. It's what are your earnings? That's what they price you at. So if you're going to take a real estate company public, the first thing you do is you separate it into two entities. One entity is going to have earnings and the other entity is going to own assets. Now, and a typical investor in real estate doesn't mind investing in hard brick and mortar because they understand brick and mortar and they understand its value, okay? The public company investor doesn't want to own the value of the asset. They want to own the income from the asset because that's what will give them earnings per share. So once you get that, now you start to understand how you want to structure a real estate company as a public company. You want to have a company that owns the assets that normal investors put their money into. That's here, okay? That's over here. Over here, you want to have a master leasing company that leases those companies at under market value, okay? So that it has low costs of leasing the property from the owner that they can then turn around and lease it at market rates to the public or the user of the property and earn a lot of income. So now they got a lot of income. You take that public at 20 times earnings. Then you've got all of your asset owners over here, right, who invested in the real estate, and they're happy because it's brick and mortar. They can go feel it, touch it, taste it. But they do have to have enough to amortize the debt. They do have to have enough income coming in to do certain things that keep the property stable. So there has to be enough income coming in for that almost. Well, you're saying, if there isn't enough income coming in from this, because we kept the income over here, so it would be worth 20 times that income in earning, in its value, then we give the people who have this ownership in the real estate some stock in our company, which we can easily give them because we're leveraging that profit huge 20 times. We give them some stock in the company that they now have as an offset to the fact that they're not bringing in as much income as they want. So they own the asset. They've got stock in our company, which is another asset that they own, and we get the leverage of the income over here in the public company at 20 times earnings. Like, wow.
When you talk about mastermind, that is some mastermind stuff right there. Wow.
Yeah, it's a question. See, if I have a couple of gifts. I don't want to hide from them. One of the gifts is the ability to take the aspects of a business, separate them up into dozens of components, and then how do you rearrange the components to optimize the values of each component? Okay, that's what I just did for you here in real estate. Real estate has a value, but not in a public company. Earnings have value in a public company. So you separate the asset from the earnings, and then you take a piece of the asset value you created as a multiple of earnings, you give that back to the asset holders. So they get what they want. The asset holders are getting what they're going to get a better return than they ever would have gotten under a traditional structure. But now over here on the public side, you've got all of this value that you just created by this multiple of earnings, and you don't have any assets here, you just have earnings. Over here, you have minimal earnings and assets, and you use the benefit and the leverage of one to help offset the other to keep everybody happy.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
And excuse my lack of knowledge, but when you said that the public companies, basically their stock price is based only on earnings, so any assets that a public company has, it's basically, it just sits on the balance sheet and doesn't affect the stock price. Is that right?
It sits on the balance sheet, but who cares? I can't live, if I own stock in a public company, I don't live in the balance sheet. I live with the shares I own. What are they worth? Okay. and they're worth a multiple of earnings. I mean, you take General Motors, they're structured totally wrong. Okay, why are they structured totally wrong? Because they own all this plants and machinery and equipment and all that stuff that they get no credit for and stuff in the public marketplace. The public marketplace cares about one thing: earnings per share. So they own all that stuff. Why? Put it in another company, sell it off, create cash from it, okay? And then give a piece of your stock to those folks so that the under market rate that they're going to charge you for the use of those assets that's going to enable you to make more earnings per share is a peanut, is a infinitesimal amount for you to share back with them. You'll make more money by just having a company that has no assets and all this income, and you let somebody else own the assets and earn this traditional return, which is relatively low on those assets.
Wow.
You see, it's a different way of thinking, guys. It's a different way of thinking. And it's a question
That's
of
right.
what has value in the marketplace and what doesn't. Why should you sit there owning all these assets when the public gives you no credit for owning those assets? They don't care that you own those assets. They're only interested in your earnings per share. So why own the assets? Get rid of them. Okay? Turn them into something that, in the way you get rid of them, gives you more earnings per share.
Wow. Wow.
That is genius right there.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
that's why I love Gordon. Because one
Okay.
thing about Gordon, a Bizar, he is the real deal, and he's not a bullshit international business expert. He's the real deal. He's been doing this over 50 years. So me and him worked on many projects, and when I introduced Gordon to people in the business space, especially the people that I'm affiliated with, they are blown away by his level of thinking.
I think we just lost.
I was blown away.
We lost you there for a minute. You kind of faded out for a second. But anyway, thank you for that, Arthur. But again, one of the things I just keep trying to explain over and over again is you got to enjoy what you do. It's like, if there's any doubt in anybody's mind, I love what I do. It's like, you couldn't give me a better game to play. You couldn't give me something to have more fun at. I mean, my kid goes off to ball games. I go off to business. and you know Jason, right?
Yeah. Yes, I know Jason very, very well. Yeah. So Jason is a intelligent individual, and Gordon is definitely the real deal. Gordon has worked with Tony Robbins. He's worked with marketing guru Jay Abraham. Remember when we went to Grant's office, we had an intelligent dialogue about taking businesses public, and we talked about entrepreneurism, and then we talked about a little bit about real estate. So Gordon has worked with a lot of successful entrepreneurs all over the world, and we're still working with phenomenal people, as I generally speak today. So, Gordon, we covered a lot of ground tonight in regards to taking businesses public. What's the true definition of a true entrepreneur? Is a person that's taking a vision and leveraging the vision with other people, but remember, they have to be on the same page to make that vision real. And I'm kind of speechless right now because I'm so used to you delivering this type of value to me on a regular basis and doing conference calls. And we're still doing conference calls to close big transactions, and we had big transactions in the works. Can you explain to the audience in your own influential way, what was the most important day of your life when you experienced financial freedom?
Well, that's kind of a good question. I almost have to think about that for a while. What was the most financial freedom? Probably, you're gonna laugh at this. It was probably right after my first divorce.
Wow. Wow.
True financial freedom.
True financial freedom. It's like, whoa. Anyway, but to really try to bring it down to what creates this incredible feeling of financial freedom. I really feel that I was born with it, a sense of financial freedom, to the point where it occurred to me very early in life I was never going to work for anybody. That even in college, I didn't even if I had part-time jobs, they were just that, a part-time job, but they were jobs that left me really in control of my own time, my own ability. And even to this day, there's a lot of transactions that I don't do that are very lucrative, but I won't do them because there's somebody that, as a part of that process, that wants to have their foot on my throat, and I won't allow that. I just won't allow it. I didn't get to be 75 years old and want to be in a place where other people can control my time or my energy or can determine my fate. I wanted to be, it was more important for me to determine my own fate, good, bad, or ugly, than it was to have somebody else control my fate. And I think that most people who are entrepreneurial have that gene in them somewhere, and it's part of what enables them or drives them to take risk over mediocre certainty. And I think that if a person looks into that mirror deep and hard, and they're saying to themselves, you know, I can't give up my secure paycheck, they shouldn't be an entrepreneur. They shouldn't even contemplate it. If they're saying to themselves, nothing is more important to me, I would rather live half naked on a desert island and be in control of my own time than to be in a park house, you know, in a Park Avenue penthouse, but with somebody else telling me what to do every minute of my day. Okay, that's the key. That's a big key as to whether or not you should be an entrepreneur or not. And to me, it's my whole life has been about I needed power from. I don't need power over. I don't want to have any. I don't seek control over other people. I just don't want anybody having power over me. And that's a very, very important part of my life. And it's been true for me for as far back as I can think. So I've never allowed myself to be in a position where other people had power over me. And it means I passed on a lot of good deals. I can think of one in particular back in Beverly Hills, California, where there was this thing that was passed back in the mid 70s called Prop 13. It was the Howard Jarvis tax initiative is what it was called back then. And this individual, Howard Jarvis, took on the whole state of California because the property taxes had gotten so outrageous that people were being taxed out of their homes. I mean, people who had worked all their lives to have a nice home, and now they were getting ready for retirement when their income was coming down, couldn't pay the taxes on the increasing taxes on the houses, and they were having to be forced out of them. So the Proposition 13 came along and said you can't tax property more than 1% of its value, period. Okay, and once the tax rate was set, if the value went up, too bad, government, you're stuck with that rate as long as that person owns that home. Now, the significance of that is that in Beverly Hills, the local city council said, look, we don't want to be restricted by that cap on our revenue from our community. They couldn't now tax the homeowners, so they had to find a tax someplace else. So they figured out they were going to tax the businesses. Well, they couldn't tax the business property anymore because that was now going to be protected under Prop 13 too. But they could raise the business license tax, the right to do business in the city of Beverly Hills, to anything they wanted it to be. So they raised it 3,000% in order to make up for what they felt their losses were going to be on that side. So I, at that time, was a brazen hussy, and I took the opportunity to go to all the big landowners in Beverly Hills and to raise from them money to fight the city on the raise of the business license tax, showing how that it was a circumvention of Prop 13, and by the way in which it was, interestingly enough, structured, also now against the law. So I had a couple of big building owners who were, you know, mega wealthy people, liked the idea that I was taking on to organize the business owners and specifically the big building owners there in the city. And they decided that they were going to subsidize my effort to help me get this done. One of them, and I can tell you his name, I know he's not with us anymore, so I can share his name with you. It was a fellow by the name of George Conheim, who eventually sold his big buildings to Tishman, who was another big realtor and he sold his buildings to him. But when he did that, he literally got on the phone with me, and he says, come over here. He says, you're going to raise this money quicker than you think. He picked up the phone and he called about 24 of the big building owners, you know, in the Beverly Hills area. And he raised for me at the time $200,000 in an hour. Now, $200,000, today's dollars, doesn't sound like all that much, but in 1975, that was like raising 5 million today. Okay, if you put it in, you know, dollar for dollar after inflation. Okay, so imagine this guy sits down on the phone, he raises 5 million bucks. Okay, in a couple hours, right? All right, so he helped to pull all that together for me, and that was a big deal for me back then, because now he sent me around as the errand boy to go to all these wealthy building owners and go collect the money that they just promised to give us to go fight the city. And so it gave me the opportunity to meet all them. Well, now how does this tie back to my statement earlier that I've passed on a lot of good opportunities because I wouldn't be someone that someone else could control. All right, he was helping me at the time and giving me an opportunity to go out and meet a lot of wealthy people under the best of circumstances. But that relationship moved on to where I'm now running this company that's in one of its functions is to fight the city of Beverly Hills. And he had a son-in-law that he felt he wanted to have a good job for that person. And he asked me to bring that guy on as my vice president so that his son-in-law could have a prestigious job at a business in the community. And I'm now in a position where I'm having to listen to him and take on things that I don't want to take on. So I told him no. Well, you don't tell a billionaire no. Okay, and keep him as your friend.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
so he played it out for me to continue to fight the city, but as far as me ever doing anything with him in the future, it wasn't going to happen because I said no to him. And I knew when I said no to him that I was going to close that door. But if I had said yes to him, then I would have been working under his thumb for everything else that I did in that community. And I wouldn't do that. So a lot of people would say, Gordon, you were nuts. That was your key to the throne in the country club and the places where the shakers and movers hang out, and your doors would have been open forever. You would have had money behind you and anything. I mean, all that was true. I was a young guy then. I didn't have those resources back then. So I knew when I closed that door that I was hurting myself financially. But it was no way I was going to undertake anything where I didn't run my own fate. And that's in the genes. That's not necessarily a good value judgment, but it's in my genes. Then that's what's governed my decision, not the money.
Wow. That's well. You made a decision to close one door, but it's still relevant in the business industry today. And most people would have capitalized on that opportunity, especially when they build a rapport with a billionaire. But even though you shut down that door, but other doors open for you throughout the years. Gordon,
yeah, absolutely.
Can you explain to the audience in layman's terms, is the best advice that you have ever received in your personal life as well as in your business life?
Best advice I ever received. Wow. Oh, you're going to laugh at this. My mom had this thing where she was giving me some advice one day. And she felt I was too trusting of other people. And she told me a story about an uncle of mine and she told me a story about what happened with him and his son and how he conveyed to his son this whole idea of what is appropriate to trust in people and what isn't. And the visualization that she painted for me was, she explains that my uncle had his son standing up on the bed, and he was standing, of course, on the floor. The kid was short, right, because the kid's a kid. And he's standing there, and he says, "Jump, I'll catch you." Okay, and the kid, the kid jumps, right, and he doesn't catch him. He lets him fall on the floor. And
Wow.
the message was, son, in your life, you just need to know, never fully trust anybody.
Mm.
And that message got modified for me in many ways, to where Reagan put the final bow on it for me. And that was trust but verify. And if I look at any of the mistakes that I made in my life, it was because I trusted people too much. And they disappointed me in some way or another. And once I got the message that it's okay to trust, in fact, you can't succeed without trusting other people, because you need to give them that trust in order to survive yourself. But
That's
you
true.
make them earn it. Number one, they have to earn the trust. And second, you verify always. Okay, business is constant verification of the trust that you place in other people. You can't succeed without the trust, because you have to have this very tight control of everything, and you can't succeed with that. You've got to give people the freedom, the ability to move themselves and to move the things forward, which means you can't be on them every minute. But the idea that you trust, but you verify, you trust, but you make people earn the trust, were very valuable lessons for me, that if I hadn't eventually learned them, until I had learned them in full, I would have things that were very expensive that would happen to me that could cause me some very significant losses. So it was a very important thing to learn. So I don't know if that's what you had in mind, Arthur, but that's what came to mind with the question.
Yeah, that's solid. Did Arthur? Or
I don't know.
looks frozen up.
He's frozen on my screen here.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I'm sure he'll be back in a second. I had another question, Gordon. As far as, small businesses, what your point of view is, and kind of what, how you approach a small business and value it. For example, let's say there's a business maybe doing $1 million in revenue and probably netting maybe 25% of that. If someone were to be looking to kind of exit an organization like that and make a sale of the company, are there any kind of insights that you would share for a person who's looking to basically sell an organization like that? What type of value to expect, any things to do prior to entering the market to sell it, and how to enter the market to sell it?
All good questions. All good questions. Pricing a business is as much art as it is science. So that's the first thing you've got to realize, that two appraisal companies could look at a business, come up with different numbers. A buyer and a seller could be miles apart, each one believing in their heart and their soul that they're absolutely right as to what the price of the business is. It's fair market price is still what a willing buyer will pay. A willing and knowledgeable buyer will pay a willing and knowledgeable seller. Okay, so that's somewhere there. That's what establishes the fair market price. But here's the essence of the value.
Mm-hmm.
The essence of the value is the earnings of the business. You can't get away from that. Okay, if, let's say, in order to say the business is worth $1 million, you measure it in terms of what else would $1 million buy.
Mm-hmm.
If $1 million buys me a return of $200,000 a year, then if the business is making $200,000 a year but doesn't have a dollar's worth of assets, you can argue it's worth $1 million, because that's the value it takes to produce $200,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all comes down to what is the business producing and how much of it is transferable to you as the buyer. So, because I remember I always try to approach this from the buyer standpoint. I buy more than I sell.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're selling, you just flip the coin. Okay, you can't expect a buyer to pay you more than they could earn from investing their money someplace else, given the security that they would have in investing with you. So, for example, if I'm a business operator and all the clients are mine, two businesses. Let me give you two businesses, both making $1 million in sales, both making 250,000 net. Okay, profit.
Mm-hmm.
In one business, I have no assets. I make $250,000 a year, another business. I have no assets. We'll keep them apples and apples. I make $250,000 a year, but in business A over here, it's the customer relationships are based on my personality. Okay. I have this personal rapport with my customers. They do business with me because they like me. And this other business over here is I am making money, $250,000 a year, but I got employees, I got all these people. There's no one relationship. These clients are sticky, meaning they don't leave. They're going to stay here no matter who the new owner is. Whereas on the other business, they may leave because they don't like the new owner, right? All right. Well, one business can transfer the ownership of the value of the relationships of the customers that produce the income. The other one cannot. Okay, because the minute the owner leaves, because he's selling the business, the customers may leave too. Okay, so that understanding and being able to assess if those customers are going to stay versus not stay puts a different value on the business. Because at the end of the day, the business that can lose all of its customers when I take over versus the business that won't lose all of its customers when I take over, the one that won't lose its customers is way more valuable to me. I'm not going to be willing to pay anywhere near that for that first business as I would for the second business. So that's why the pricing of a business is as much art form as it is science. You can't just take the numbers alone and use that to price the business. How likely is that income to persist? How is there anything going on in the marketplace that would stop that company from earning money in the future? Maybe a change in technology. For example, right now with today's technology, business A makes nice money, but next year there could be a new technology come along, puts them out of business. Next year, competition from the Mideast puts them out of business, or from China, or from India, or some other place where it's now going to get made cheaper. I mean, there's all this stuff's going on. So you've got to be able to look at the bigger picture when you're selling or buying a business, and you got to be realistic about what's the real ability of that business to transfer its profitability. And sometimes you buy a company and then the key people leave right because they don't like you as the new owner. Okay, so yeah, the business, what if the employees stayed, they would have kept the customers, but because the employees don't like you, they leave and they take the customers with them. Okay, so there's too much stuff going on to just say it's a simple process. It's not. And that's why when we train people how to do this stuff, we train them in everything. I mean, we make people experts in all of the key elements that it takes to be successful in a business acquisition. And the reverse is if you sell it. In other words, if I'm going to sell my business, how do I create as much security as I can for the new buyer? A lot of times people, when they sell a business, they're so self-centered. It's all about them. They just want the money and they want to go.
Right.
Okay. Whereas if they take the time to realize what is the seller really buying, how can I ensure the stickiness of that for the new buyer? How can I help the buyer actually finance the purchase? How can I help them in that process? Everything I do to make the buyer's job easier and more fruitful justifies why I can charge a higher price for the business. But yet most people who are sellers don't want to think that way. They just want to think about, I want to get out with the most dollars I can, and their thought process stops there. So guess what happens? Most often they don't get out with the most money they can. Okay. So if I were going to train a seller, I would train them in what's good for the buyer and how to make the buyer happier with the purchase, instead of looking at the buyer as the enemy, as the partner to hide things from. I would look at it as, how do I work with the buyer to make it the best purchase for them I possibly can? One of the things that really bothers me about the world we live in is how narrow the thinking process is of a very significant majority of the people. Because the world has become a me world. Okay, it's all about me. It's what's good for me. And what people don't realize is what's good for you is what's good for everybody you deal with. Okay, that's what turns out to be really good for you. And if you can create more value for buyers, more value for customers, more value for investors, more value for partners, more value for employees, more value for suppliers, and that's your business philosophy, your business is on its way to the moon. Okay. And the business owner who's sitting there saying, how do I cut this corner? And how do I cut this corner? And how do I create a value proposition here that looks like I'm giving a lot, but I'm really not? If that's their mental thinking, that's 20th century thinking. Okay. And it wasn't good then, and it really isn't good now. Okay. It's about, if you see yourself as a value creator for everybody you interact with, that's the proper positioning for yourself in business. So that when I go into business, I'm looking at my customers, creating more value for them, creating more value for my suppliers, creating more value for my investors, creating more value for my partners, creating more value for the frickin' tax collector. Why? Because I want my business thriving in a community that's thriving. Okay? So
That's right.
I want to know everybody's winning from my business. And if I've done a good job of that, I won big.
Solid.
Wow. Powerful information. Gordon, let's talk about and have a conversation about money. Now, I know money is not value. Money is just a facilitator to do transactions. Can you explain to the audience, how would you define money?
Well, money is just another methods of measurement and transfer of value. Okay, you measure it in terms of dollars, right? Because now we have something we can agree on. In other words, if I have 2 rabbits and you have one cat, how do we trade your cat for my 2 rabbits? In other words, how do we identify the value of 2 rabbits versus a cat? Okay, you do that with money. In other words, what's the market price of a rabbit multiplied by 2 versus what's the market price of a cat multiplied by 1? So money is an important way to measure and compare value. It is also basically just a medium of exchange. You don't need money to transfer value, as long as you can agree on the measurement and as long as you can agree on the swap. But the minute money got invented, commerce exploded. Why? Because you couldn't carry around 3 cows to make a trade for a wagon. Okay, you had to have an easy way to do that. Money facilitates that. Now, the money system has been hijacked by the banks. It's hijacked by the investment banking firms, so that the folks who control money have made it a way that they can extract, through the control of their money, tremendous amounts of value over people who don't have that control over the money. That's unfortunate. Okay, and it's actually an inhibitor on our system, but it exists. You're stuck with it. But with that inhibitor, money is still more valuable because of its fluidity and its measurement value, even after all these people take their piece of it, than it would be if it wasn't invented and wasn't used. So I try to do as many of my transactions as I can without having to convert it to cash, because that way I'm not paying out all the people who string value to that cash being supplied to me. But whatever it is, you still are stuck with the fact that you have to use money. I don't know if that's what you wanted or if that's where you're going, but money is the denominator. It tells us what things are worth. It's the basis of comparison, and it's the method of exchange that makes exchange easy, because money is something that you don't even have to stuff it in your wallet. You can sit in your bank account and you can write on a piece of paper and transfer it, because that's what the money translates through wires, it translates through checks, it translates through different mediums, but it still comes down to it's just money. And but it has a very important function to play in exchange.
So you said money is a method of exchange. So money is the byproduct of the value that you uncover?
Well, it's not a byproduct of it. In other words, it's it's a medium through which you create the exchange. There's something you can exchange that's convenient. Again, you can, you don't need money, but you don't want to, you don't want to bring your 2 cows with you everywhere you go. So you can trade a little milk here and there, and maybe even trade a whole cow for this or that. I mean, think how cumbersome that'd be, right? It used to be done that way. There was a time when that was the way transactions happened. And what happens if your value that you're translating is only worth half a cow? I mean, you don't want to have to sit there and cut your cow in half in order to, affect this transaction, right? And then if you did that, the cow wouldn't be worth what it's worth anyway, right? So the point that I'm trying to get at is that if you live with a world of barter, it's very difficult. Now, some people come up with efficient ways of bartering. One of the ways of bartering is, you have a barter exchange, and you exchange for units of value, where you're still exchanging stuff, but now it's translated into units, and you're getting units credited to your account. And it helps. Okay, but it's still not as
the
fluid.
barter system.
Yeah, it's still not as fluid as something that has an agreed upon value enforced by the government that sets the value and the method of exchange, which then gives the money the value, but the value isn't in the money, it's because of what the money now can buy as a medium of exchange. Okay, and I don't know that that really helps anybody, because at the end of the day, in our world, they're still going to need, quote, money to do stuff. The question is how do you make money appear when it normally isn't there? If we're buying a business, I mean, think about this. We're going to buy a $10 million business, and I come up to the deck here to make the exchange for the business, and I may not have a dime in my pocket. But if I know how to take the assets and the cash flow that are in that business and to leverage those assets for the purchase of the business, and then use the income of the business to pay back the source of the money that I used to buy the business because of its asset value and cash flow value, I did it all without having money in my pocket. That's the difference. Okay, so there's going to be money, but it doesn't have to be in your pocket to get it done. Does that make any sense?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Definitely.
Gordon, I wrote down some powerful words, 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, so you can rate them in your own influential way. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Now, which is the highest now? I want to be sure I'm going to get this right.
10 is the highest and 1 is the lowest.
All right. So if I meet any women, they got to be 10s now, right? I just want to be sure.
Accountability.
Now you're talking about what's its value to whom? I need to know the prefix here. In other words, accountability in what?
Accountability in partnerships and in business.
It's a 10. If you're not accountable, nothing's going to come of what you do, because people are going to go do what they want to do because they're not accountable. This is that simple. Okay, if you don't have accountability, you don't have a business. It's a 10.
Perseverance.
10. You don't have perseverance, you're not going to accomplish anything.
Value.
Well, I don't know what value means. Value is what? What is value? How are you defining value?
Well, like for example, when you educate.
Fair exchange. In other words,
fair exchange.
Fair exchange. Okay, 10. Okay, because if you're cheating somebody, they'll find a way to get you. That's it. Okay. Can you survive by not giving fair value? Sure, but you're going to survive. You're not going to thrive. To thrive, you need to give value. You need to equate value. You need to exchange with fair value. And the minute you stop doing that, you're not going to thrive.
Top line revenue.
Doesn't mean crap. That's a 1. I don't care what the top line revenue is. I can't spend top line revenue. I can only spend net.
EBITDA.
It's everything. If you don't have a cash flow, you ain't got nothing.
Building great relationships.
10. If you build great relationships, you can have anything you want, because if somebody's got what you need and they'll give it to you, you just give them what they want, and that comes out of a good relationship with those people. That's the basis under which all that happens. Let me just stop you for 1 second there, and then you can go on with the questions. There was a time, and I was young, so you'll forgive me, when I thought life was all about stuff. Okay, in other words, you had a lot of stuff, so that made you important. Okay, you had things that made you important. You had control of assets that made you important. And the thing I put the least amount of value on was relationships. You know, who cared? So you got a good relationship. What's that going to do for you? And I'm 180 degrees from that today. And it took me the first maybe 6 or 7 years of my business life to fully implement that transition, until you started to realize that everything that has any value at all is in a relationship with a person. Your happiness in life is because of your relationships with people. If you have good relationships with your mom, your dad, your kids, your spouse, and those relationships are sound and they're good and they're positive and they're giving, you're going to be a damn happy person. And you take and remove that, you're going to be an unhappy person. I don't care how rich you are. And you learn that after a while. Doesn't matter. Relationships are everything. When they put you in the box at the end of your life, the only people standing around your grave are the people you had a good relationship with. All the stuff you had is somewhere else. And it's worthless. It means nothing. What did you leave behind? Who's better off? Who cares about you? Who cared about you when you were alive? Who cares about you now that you're gone? Who's going to miss you? Why are they going to miss you? Those are the important things in life.
Mm. Health.
Health, 10. You ain't doing crap if you aren't healthy. And if you do the crap, you don't enjoy it if you're not healthy.
Family.
10. Okay, because if you don't have their support, if you're not taking the time to educate them what you're doing, why you're doing it, getting their buy-in to supporting what you're doing, your life's going to be miserable. Okay, on the other hand, if they're behind you, if they're backing you, they understand you, they love you, they care about you getting the results you're looking for in life, you got a support system that'll give you the tenacity to succeed. If you don't have that solid family behind you and you're constantly on the edge and you're constantly insecure, you're not going to have the courage to go out and do what you need to do. Your family is the cornerstone of your courage in life to go out and do great things. And if they're not behind you, you got a real problem. So taking the time to make sure your family's behind you is important. Now, you could argue, well, look, my goals are this, and I'm going to achieve that, and my family's not behind me. They don't understand me. Well, you got to make a decision. Maybe you don't have the right family. That's possible for you. Mm-hmm. But you can't go through your life and not have a strong family. Okay? So you somewhere along the line, if you're married to the wrong person, well, maybe it's time to change. I'm not saying you're stuck with one family forever. I'm just saying if you don't have the right family behind you, you're in trouble.
Wow. Wealth.
Wealth is, I don't know how you put a number on that, because wealth without all the other stuff doesn't mean anything. Wealth is only measurable in terms of stuff. Okay, that's what wealth is. What if you're saying wealth to me is your relationships with people? Yeah, that's very valuable. That's real wealth. Okay, but stuff is not wealth. Okay, and that's what most people think of. Stuff to me is overrated. Okay, it's maintenance. You own 10 homes. You got 10 insurance policies. You got 10 storms that can wreck your whole house. Okay, you've got to maintain it. You got to worry about who's breaking into it when you're not there. Okay, who owns who? The house owns you. You don't own the house. You got to service the house. The house doesn't service you unless you service the house. So having homes, having cars, having all that stuff is stuff that you got to maintain. I want the use of stuff. If I want a yacht, I want to be able to go down to the harbor and go jump in a yacht, go on a cruise. I don't want to own the yacht. I don't want to have to make sure there's a crew on the yacht. I don't want to have to insure the yacht. I don't want to have to worry if there's a storm coming in, what's going to happen to my yacht. Okay, I just want to know that when I want to go for a cruise in the Caribbean, there's a yacht there for me to go on a cruise on. Okay, so owning the stuff is not important to me. It's the idea that whatever I want to do in life, I have the resources to do it, but to own the stuff is irrelevant.
Integrity.
100% 10. Because if you don't have it, you can't expect it from anybody else. And if you don't get it from anybody else, you're not going anywhere.
Wow. Marriage.
Critical. Right marriage will take you to the moon. Wrong marriage will take you to hell and back. Okay. No, it's really important. I mean, if you don't have a good partner in life, you got a problem. It's a 10. You got the right partner. Again, that's your support system. That's your courage. That's your again, I told my wife, as long as we had each other, I was fearless, because I could lose it all tomorrow. Okay.
Right.
I don't care. If I got my family and we're together and we're stuck like glue, then I've got everything I need, no matter, because the government's not going to let me starve. Okay, there's no way you can starve in America. It's not even possible anymore. You got to work at starving in America. Okay, so I don't worry about that. As long as my family and I are together and we're committed to each other, that's what matters. Everything else I can reconstruct. So that's why that's an absolute 10. Now, if you noticed, I'm a little black and white here, right? Okay, yes and no, 10 and 1.
Yes.
Okay, because tend to be that way. Okay, it's like there is not a lot of stuff that you can say, well, if I got enough of it, I'm cool. That doesn't really work. You don't have enough integrity. You either have absolute integrity, people can totally trust you, or they can't trust you at all. If I can't trust somebody 100% of the time, what's the use? How do I know when that 1% of the time is going to come up when I can't trust them? Okay, so it's absolute. It's a 10. You either have it in absolute or you don't.
Courage.
Well, now I'm going to go eat my words. Courage is malleable. Okay, it's a 10 if you're going to really do great things, but you can have a 9, you can have an 8, and do very, very well. And then it's a question of what do you want. But you got to have courage. Again, it's like, I'm not even going to go there. This was a quote by a guy who was one of the great shipping magnates of all times. Onassis was his name. And he has some great quotes. The guy was really crude, and he would say things that I will not say. and his idea of courage and his male genitals were two comparisons that he used to make all the time in terms of what courage you had to have to be successful. That's as far as I'm going to take it.
So, I mean, did he say you got to have balls?
His whole thing was, either you got the balls to go out and do it or you don't, and he was as crude as you could get about it. Okay, let me give you another one of his quotes. As long as we're into the quotes, okay, you seem to want to break the ice and go out and talk. Okay, I'm an older generation. I'm a little, I get a little.
Right.
Okay, but anyway, this guy was very, very crude. His favorite comment from my standpoint was after he completed the purchase of 7 tankers, big ships, right? His quote was, I bought 7 tankers, and the only time I had to put my hand in my pocket was to scratch my balls.
Oh, man.
He understood financial leverage. He understood the fact that money, it didn't have to be his to buy stuff. And he was crude.
Wow. Yeah, that was crude.
Well, thank you for bringing me in.
Wow. All right, that was good. That was real good, Gordon. I'm glad you broke that down in layman's terms about those specific, powerful words. I really appreciate that. Gordon, let's talk about EBITDA. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. Why is that important in a business?
Because it's the only spendable money that you have. Okay,
Mm,
everything else is getting used someplace. This doesn't belong to you. EBITDA is what belongs to you when all is said and done.
mm,
And it's the only money you can repay debt from. So if you're going to borrow money to buy the business, for example, you got to have the EBITDA in the business to create the cash to pay back your loans to buy the business. If you don't have EBITDA, you can't pay back a loan. If you can't pay back a loan, no one's going to loan you the money. If no one's going to loan you the money, you can't buy the business. And even if you
mm,
have all the money, why do you want to spend your money to buy a business that isn't going to give you any earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization? Now, the thing that messes people up a little bit is what are all those letters stand for? Okay, earnings, well,
mm,
we all understand that the business has earnings. Before interest, well, remember, what we're trying to find out is the number, the amount of income that the business has that can be used to repay debt, because that's what enables you to determine how much money you can borrow to buy the business. Well, before interest, depreciation, taxes, and amortization is the raw cash flow of the business. Okay? After the expenses of earning the money. So you've earned the money, and before you now have spent it on those other three or four things, how much cash flow is there? Because that's the cash flow that pays for those other things. The amortization of a loan that you had to borrow the money, the taxes that are going to come out of the money that you earn because the government's going to take it. Okay, well, all those things, we want to know how much real cash flow is in this business so we can pay all those other things. So that's what that number is telling us. That's the part that we have to work with after the business operates, that lets us know what we can pay for the business and what the business is really worth to us.
mm. Wow. Gordon, I really appreciate you sharing your specialized knowledge with our audience, because the whole premise of this show is to educate entrepreneurs and business owners on the national or international scale that they can live the life that they truly desire, but they have to be open to these important principles. So I don't like what I see with some of the news, so I create my own news.
Whoopsie, I think we lost him.
Oh no, right at the
Yeah.
pivotal
Well,
closing
here,
on.
let me maybe hopefully kind of
Yeah,
help to bring this event here to a close, because I'm going to
sure,
have to unfortunately go.
sure.
And that is that life is all about knowledge. It's all about how you think, how you build your mind,
Mhm.
how you build your thinking process, and the resources that you allow yourself to bring into your thinking process. So having said that, I would like to invite everybody to just go visit gettingrichyourway.com,
Definitely.
because it's going to be a mind opener. We're going to we're going to like to take a can opener, open up your head, and you're going to get to see how thinking processes come together to create opportunities to create great wealth, not just in a way that somebody else has built their wealth, but in a way that now you can build it your way, in a business of your choice, in a field of your passion, in an area where you have experience and expertise, and put that experience and expertise to its optimum use to create wealth for yourself. And that to me is the ultimate opportunity. It's the great benefit of living in America,
Mm.
where nobody, at least not yet, puts a lid on what we can do.
Mm.
That if we have the courage, if we have the tenacity, if we have the passion, if we have the drive, and we're willing to think and think things through, and allow ideas and concepts to matriculate through our thought process and take from them what will help us, then we have the opportunity to make life whatever we want it to be.
Mm.
And to me, that's what the great life is all about, is the ability to do that and never work a day in your life because you're doing it out of passion, and you're doing it out of a sense of value that you're transferring to other people, that let you sleep great at night, knowing that you've been a benefit to everybody whose lives you've touched. I say a prayer every day. It's my prayer. I say this every day. And I'm not a religious person, by the way. I don't practice an ongoing religion. But I am spiritual, and I believe in a superior being.
Mhm.
And here's how I start every single day. This is a prayer I say. I say, thank you, God, for the air I breathe, for each and every breath I take, for each and every beat of my heart, and for the miracles and blessings bestowed on me each and every day of my life, and for smiling on the likes of an old fool like me. And then I finish it with, bless my projects, that all who work on them and in them and who use them will live happier, healthier, longer, more productive, more prosperous lives than they would have without them. And that's what I want my life to mean every day.
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
grateful just to be alive and to have the opportunity to be on the planet and have the life available to me that's in front of me. And then I want every day to be productive so that everybody who I come in contact with, who are part of anything I'm doing, can live that happier, healthier, longer, more prosperous, more productive, longer life because of the things that they do with me and the things that I can bring to them. If that's my day, every day, I am the happiest guy in the world.
Beautiful message.
Wow.
That's a beautiful message right there. Wow.
Yes, powerful message. Powerful message.
All right, guys. Well, anyway,
Gordon,
thank you for this opportunity today. This was great.
Thank you.
oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you. Do you have any last pearls of wisdom for the audience?
Just seize the day. You only have so many. They're all counted in front of us. Somewhere along the line, there's a count. Okay, and every day, if you treat it like it's your last, if you treat it like this is the day that that you're going to make the most contribution that you can to life in general and to the people around you, if you're going to be a value adder, and if you're going to learn the principles of leverage so that you can take whatever resources are available to you and leverage them manyfold, there is no limit to what you can accomplish in life. And I'm pleased to live every day of my life in that philosophy, and it's worked really well for me. And if I can share it with you, fantastic.
Definitely.
Wow. Wow. To everyone that's listening, I highly recommend getting involved with the phenomenal, the incredible international business expert Gordon Bizar. You had the passion that came through his voice on our show today. He broke down layman's terms about how to take businesses public, and he broke down layman's terms about what it really takes to be a successful entrepreneur. An entrepreneur has to have a vision. He had to leverage that vision with other partners to make that vision real. I highly recommend go to his website, gettingrichyourway.com. That's gettingrichyourway.com. He has incredible content that could take your mindset and your business to a whole nother level. But remember, you have to implement what you learn. So this is Arthur Robinson Jr. I'm the creator and host of Powerful Interviews podcast and powerfulinterviews.com, along with my great friend, successful entrepreneur, Jordan Phillip.
Yes, sir.
Jordan, do you have any last pearls of wisdom for the audience?
I just want to say again that to thank Gordon for joining us and sharing such wealth of knowledge. Again, I found out about both Gordon and Arthur through a video similar to this where they were on an interview with Grant Cardone, and it's amazing for me to now share the time live with them. So it's an amazing experience. Again, Gordon, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Very much appreciated. And look forward to connecting again in the future.
Great, Arthur, and great, Jordan. Thank you both for having me here today. I appreciate that as well.
Definitely.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Gordon, for taking time out of your busy schedule to educate me and the audience worldwide about business acquisitions, about private equity, and how to take businesses public and what it really takes to become a successful entrepreneur. I gladly appreciate it. You are a gift from God.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So to everyone that's listening, remember, you need to go to Gordon's website. Go to gettingrichyourway.com and absorb that content that's on that website, because it's going to shift your paradigm from paralyzed thinking to take action thinking. So to everyone that's listening, remember that the strongest asset that each and every one of you have is your brain, and what you think about and what you take action on, that will become your reality, and your mentality creates your reality. May God bless each and every one of you, and bye for now. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.